I'm a university student who follows Jesus. I've been formally trained to think critically. My view of the world is scarred with cynicism and skeptical interpretation. Rarely is it acceptable that I feel anything. If I do, I'm encouraged to rationalize it away. I continually face critical thinkers, like myself, who question the Christian subculture I come from. I try to imagine a countercultural movement like I read about in Acts, but I'm stuck in the tread of a divide between the sacred and the secular of this world. On a regular basis, I encounter situations where the name of Christ is being defamed by Christians who have forgotten the centrality of His love, where sins are ordered in a hierarchy, where people must pray through a checklist before being welcomed into the family, where people themselves are sidelined for the sake of the sins that precede them. I know that the world will change only as I change myself, but everyone else seems focused on themselves. I'm torn between changing individuals and changing institutions. History class laughs at the meta-narrative that defines my existence. Science tells me that mystery is my enemy and faith is its poison. My learning is split into departments. So goes my religion. I'm a university student who follows Jesus. I have wept over abortion, and I have grieved the breakdown of the family unit. I have also wept and grieved over Christianity's fear-filled reaction to both. In fact, I often feel boxed in by the stigma attached to words like church and Christian. I tend not to speak up for the possibility of being misinterpreted. I have awkward conversations with strangers who seem to be in need, but sometimes it feels like I do so more out of a desire to feel better about myself than out of genuine care for them. My prayers collide somewhere between, "Help me pass this test," "Save my suicidal classmate," "Please have mercy on the AIDS epidemic." I'm never sure what order they should be prayed in. I try tirelessly to see that my schooling doesn't interfere with my education. I have skipped a test to be with Jesus, and I have skipped time with Jesus to study for a test. I wonder afterward if I've failed some sort of test with God. I've known a lot of hope deferred and a few longings fulfilled. I watch my peers poke holes in any hope without offering any hope in return. Seems like cheap self-defense, but I find myself doing the same. I'm constantly divided between the voices in my head, discerning what is conviction, what is accusation, and what is simply empty tradition in my exhausted conscience. I feel compassion in the depths of my soul, but I've learned to quiet it in order to keep my head above water. Sometimes I sense that God is leading me to obey Him in an act that seems crazy to me. With all the voices clamoring for my attention, it's hard to tell who's talking, so I've gotten good at just talking it away. I'm a university student who follows Jesus. I'm on technology overload, inundated with information that is inapplicable to the vast majority of my life. I check my Facebook profile 22 times a day with the hopes of a red button notifying me of my importance to someone. Most times there isn't a response to my status update, and my status diminishes a few notches in response. I've had trouble making new friends because I'm busy keeping up with old acquaintances through a computer monitor. I like the Word of God, but I love the summary form Wikipedia gives me of its contents. I repeatedly have to remind myself that the Bible isn't another textbook to resell at semester's end at 1/10 of my purchase price. My life has a continual soundtrack provided by wires that connect to my ears and straight-arm the annoyance of other people's existence. Other people's existence. So annoying. Silence both scares and bores me tremendously, making it seriously difficult to be still and know much of anything. The natural world has all but disappeared from my daily activities. My feet are far more familiar with concrete than grass. My hands know well the texture of my keyboard and the smoothness of my cell phone, but there is no dirt beneath my tooth-trimmed fingernails. I speak 17 different dialects of the English language: homegrown simplicity, calculated indie rock, charismatic Christian, postmodern pessimist. I second guess what I'm majoring in every second day, and I can't fathom holding down one job for more than 1 year. I eat food like my body is a temple of convenience. Making coffee takes too much time out of my incredibly important day, so I stand in line for 5 minutes to buy a $5 cup. I'm a university student who follows Jesus. I'm somewhere in between child and adult. I've lost the innocence of my youth, but I've yet to achieve the wisdom of my age. The tension feels awkward and emphasizes my temporary existence. My school loans are more than my parents paid for the house I grew up in. I may not have the cash, but swiping the card doesn't really hurt anyone, and I've got it down to an art. I buy new clothes that look old so I can maintain the appearance of used and uncaring. I've often laughed and nodded at common knowledge I think I probably should know by now but don't. The world still appears wide open, sometimes even intimidatingly so, but more often I anticipate its narrowing and the possibility that I would remain little more than potential. I'm a university student who follows Jesus, returning always to questions of who God is and who I am, usually in the wrong order. I have friends, but I often feel lonely. I am habitually watching others watch me. Am I essential to anyone? I try not to look in the mirror too long when I'm alone, mostly so I can convince myself that I'm not self-obsessive. I do the things I hate, then try not to hate myself for doing them. I'm trying to figure out who I am while trying to die to myself. People have thanked me for being authentic when I have openly confessed my weaknesses. Sometimes I just want them to challenge my pride instead. Everything feels urgent and rushed, and I'm trying to learn how to rest in the midst of the chaos. To be defined less by the number of things I accomplish in a day, and more by the grounding reality that I am unfailingly loved. Not easy. I'm trying to make friends with people who don't know Jesus. That's why I have a beer, insert a swear word from time to time, and reference you too in conversation. I remember something of the religious foundations of my college, but question why today religion is at most tolerated on the periphery of my curriculum. What foundation is all this academia built upon? I'm a university student who follows Jesus. I want to love God with my entire mind, to stand empowered in my intellect without being run over by intellectualism, losing my heart in its stead. I welcome the challenge of my faith. I think a healthy argument can be more respectful than offensive. Seeing people who walk with a limp having wrestled with God makes them a bit more trustworthy to me. But I dread the possibility of a life with a divided heart. I crave resolve, and I rarely have it. I'm haunted by the question of tolerance versus acceptance, absolute versus relative truth. Perhaps what I fear most is having a form of godliness that has no actual power. Some days I have glimpses of the change in cultural norm, and it disturbs me deeply. What kind of world will my kids grow up in? The thought suddenly cuts off as I realized I missed the last 4 minutes of notes in class. I'm still trying to grow up in my own world. I recall a young leader named Joshua who conquered enemy ites to the tune of strength and courage. His ites are the isms of my modern day, worlds of thought and heralded ideas that promote the self and eliminate any life outside of me. Be strong, daughter. Be courageous, son. No longer will the stories of our fathers suffice. I am longing for kingdom come, laboring for it to break in now, looking for the places it has already established, wondering if they all collide in each moment of my everyday life. I'm a university student who follows Jesus.